One of the best things you can do in your research for the West Virginia National Cemeteries Project is utilize the enormous wealth of knowledge contained in the nation's archives. It's so satisfying to find records that no one else has ever published before. In the first year of our project, some students used photographs of their West Virginia veteran found all the way across the continent in the Alaska State Library. But to be successful with archival research, you have to know two basic building blocks: collections and finding aids. At their most basic, each of what we call archives are made up of thousands of individual collections. Some official definitions of what comprises a collection can sound a little complicated, so let's give you something a little more basic and practical. First, an archive is not the same as a museum, though oftentimes they work hand in hand. A museum collects mostly physical objects like the Liberty Bell or the jersey of your favorite football player. You can broadly think of archives as collecting stuff on paper or other two-dimensional mediums like photographs or films. The National Archives, for example, take care of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, and a lot of other stuff. And all that paper is organized into collections. Usually, collections are organized by who donated them or who originated them. Sometimes it's both. For example, these were various photographs, letters, and records donated to the West Virginia and Regional History Center at WVU by Clifford Condon, a U.S. Navy pharmacist. Because it's useful for historians to review these documents as a whole, archives don't disperse them out into different collections, but keep them together like this. This can be true of someone like Clifford Condon, or Senator J. Rockefeller, or even corporations. We're oversimplifying a bit, as any archivist will tell you, but that's the gist. So let's talk about how you can figure out whether a collection has what you need. Let's keep looking at these Union Carbide papers. First off, every collection has its own identifier, like an ID number, usually a mix of letters and numbers. Every archive is different, so keep that in mind, but every collection will have one. In this case, it's A&M 1916. At this institution, the West Virginia and Regional History Center, A&M means Archives and Manuscripts, and 1916 might mean that it's the 1,916th collection to be donated. Like I said, that's going to be different in other places. For example, this collection is at the West Virginia State Archives in Charleston. Its identifier is MS 9724, meaning it is a manuscript, like papers and letters, collection, and it was the 24th collection donated in 1997. The State Archives does collections that are mostly photos separately, so those collections all start with the prefix PH for their identifiers. But the point is, they all have one, every single archival collection, so make sure you take notes when you've found a collection you need. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about how finding aids tell you what's in a collection. Well, usually it tells you who donated the collection and a basic outline of its contents. Let's dive deeper into one of these. Most finding aids will tell you what years the materials within originate from. They might list span dates, which cover everything in the collection, and bulk dates, which are the years most of the collection originates from. In this case, they're the same, but you might have had a collection where most of the photos came from before 1970, forming the bulk dates, even if there are a few stragglers all the way to 2021, which would be the span dates. Within each collection, most records are organized into boxes with folders. This collection has 17 boxes, and here you can actually see the folder numbers listed with the contents of each folder inventoried. This is a very detailed finding aid, but not all collections will be like this. Let's go back to Clifford Condon. You can see this collection has only one document case, which is like half a box in archive speak. And as you can see, while these descriptions do give you clues as to what is in the collection, it doesn't necessarily tell you what folder it's in. That's probably not necessary with such a small collection. But what about a bigger one? Here's that Union Carbide collection again, and it has 17 of those document cases. Unfortunately, there's not a detailed list of what's in each of those. For example, if we click here, it just tells us that the contents of Box 3 cover letters from 1964 to 1965. This is still very useful if you know what you're looking for, but you might need to go in person to find out what's really there. So why bother with all of this? What good is Clifford Condon's collection if he's not your veteran? Well, what if you picked a World War II Navy pharmacist as your veteran, and you haven't been able to find much information on the job? Condon's letters might be important clues. Or maybe your vet's not a Navy pharmacist, but you find out he was held in the same Japanese POW camp in the Philippines as Condon. Maybe Condon's letters will give you first-hand insights into what life was like in those desperate circumstances. Maybe you just need to know what a Navy pharmacist in World War II looked like. You're in luck because at this archive you can scroll down and see if there's any digital material. In this case, the archive has scanned the photos and put them online, though that won't always be the case. These photos show Condon in his dress uniform just before the war. This would be a very lucky find for students researching Condon himself, but they still might be handy for other researchers too. Because history is complicated, there's no universal way to organize a collection, but getting to know how finding aids and collections work will make deeper research into some of the best materials much, much easier. Remember to take very thorough notes on collection numbers, box numbers, and other location information for all your archival material. You'll need it for your bibliography. And don't forget to ask for help. Archivists are awesome people who want to help you find things, but the more specific your request, and the more digging you've done beforehand, the more successful you'll be.